The frequency that we hold within us is the frequency that we will create without us. Good morning, everybody. I'm Dov. It's nice to see you guys, and good morning to the global community. This feels like an important message that should be spread further than our community because it needs to start becoming a global conversation, certainly a national conversation, but starting to see each other as an entire planet, as an entire collective. And as we start to shift to understand the radical need for a consciousness revolution, right? And what that actually means for our consciousness to create revolution and what that revolution really looks like. So I was drawn to jump on with you guys this morning, although I tend to sit and internalize things for a longer period of time. Headline that I woke up to this morning was a Guardian article. The Guardian article title is Minneapolis Lawmakers Vow to Disband Police Department in a Historical Move. And this led me to an important thought process that I feel that everyone needs to hear, understand, and integrate. And for some of you guys, you're going to feel right on board with understanding what it is that I'm talking about. But I'm also going to invite you to start to spread this message. This is a message that we need to all start to understand and integrate. So what's happening, right? And it's not whether or not, this video is not going to be whether or not I agree with whether we should be doing this, that I have researched every alternative, and I will say that going back to sort of my political science days, my structural days, my days in the legal field, as well as legal study, part of my mind goes, yes, we need to have plans, but my more integrated side of myself that really is dedicated to this work and why Nicole and I created the platform we created to begin with is that when we shift internally, there will be external changes, but those external changes will also always be a result of our internal state. So what I'm saying is, right, whether or not we want to talk about, and I want us to go higher than that right now, whether or not we talk about whether that is a good idea, that is a bad idea, whether we are ready for that idea, whether that idea is perpetrated by positive movement and change, source idea, right, ideology, God ideology of transformation, or whether that idea is perpetuated by negative ideology. Here's the thing, listen up closely. Whether something is perpetuated to create chaos or it is perpetuated to create good, every single one of us have the opportunity to make sure that that thing actually ends up working in our benefit. So I want to talk about the fact that our internal state of being is what's at stake right now, okay? So the police forces are created by people. Governments are created by people. And I'm not going to go into right in this moment, right, light energy, dark agendas. I want to talk about where we are, people, right now, okay? So if we are not changing internally, the structural changes won't create massive radical change. However, if we are changing internally, no matter what that structural change is, it can be beneficial. And it's very important because if we're starting to see radical structural change, whether or not we necessarily agree with it, if that change is starting to perpetuate, then the very, very, very important life-depending reality is that we start to wake up consciously and start to become responsible for doing work at an internal basis. So I was speaking with a friend yesterday, and we were talking about how the fact is that a lot of our systems within the United States and the world, right, I want to stick to the United States, a lot of our systems, the criminal justice system and so on, it had its root in punitive, white structural supremacist, fundamentalism, all of those things, right? As within, so without. So where we were consciously at the time that we created certain systems and structures that we have, those systems and structures, of course, are imbued by that fundamental intention or position of where we were at the time. Have they changed over time? Of course, as we change consciously, the system has the potential to change consciously as well. But this is why it's even more important that right now we cannot skip the idea of where we are on a conscious level now. Because if we are going to start recreating systems from a state of consciousness that is not unity consciousness, love consciousness, understanding spiritual basis, understanding expansive spiritual understanding, connecting to fundamental personal integrity, then we will have trouble, because we cannot only look at, I'm going to create external fundamental change. Systemic racism it's a symptom of an internal state, right? So many of the things that we have are not only divisive spiritual warfare agenda, but also expressions of our internal self, whether that's the fact that we haven't looked at things, or we've had ignorance to things, or the fact that we've had hate for ourselves and therefore hate. I mean, we could look at almost any subject, right? We're looking at global and climate change. We can look at systemic racism. We can look at fear of others. We can look at homophobia. We can look at animal abuse. Believe it or not, they're rooted in the energetic relationship that we have to ourselves and therefore to everything else around us. There is no getting around this. There are laws of the universe. There are laws of the way that we exist in this plane and reality. And it's time that we start to integrate those worlds. We're no longer going to succeed at just creating structural changes without understanding that did those structural changes come from an actual change in our consciousness. And in order to maintain the success of structural changes, allowing ourselves to be conscious of what consciousness shifts have happened within us. This is really important, guys. I need you to tell me if this is making sense. Please write in the comments. I can't pay attention to the comments right now because I am really trying to be focused with you guys on this subject. And I'm going to ask you to share this as well. I really think that this is something that should not maintain itself within our community, but be spread as far as possible. We need to have a conversation about understanding that what we feel inside of ourselves right now, right, is what is going to be manifest outside. So if we're showing up, right, again, I'm not placing an opinion here. If we are showing up as a nation or a global community and we're saying, I have had enough with judging other people, abusing other people, allowing other people to be scared, if that's our intention, then the structures that will be born from that intention will have an evolutionary progression from what we have currently. If our intention is, I just want to break down things, I just want to attack, an eye for an eye, I'm just going to have my space to finally say our ancestors were wrong, that might not create a change. If the vibration of where we are creating from is identical to the vibration that already created the thing, then we have a problem. So again, not talking about whether or not, you know, it will work or not work, it will be good or not good. And I'm going to remind all of you guys to stay away from fear. Right? To stay away from fear, because fear, shame, guilt, we're going to that low vibration where we cannot see, we cannot think, we cannot create. If we create a system where, and I know there are a lot of theories going on right now, and I don't want to speak to this quite yet because I really do need to investigate some of the theories. I'm very transparent when I am up on something and I'm not up on something. I have resources that have been sent to me. I have not read all of the resources. I want to see what kind of proposals people have come up with. I will assume and hope that people have had proposals to replace police systems before this happened, because if we just came up with them in a couple days, of course that feels kind of right. So hopefully there's real thought, and I of course assume there is. I know there's books that have been published on this years ago, so I know that people have been talking about this. So if those structures are good or bad, it's not necessarily the focus, because here's the thing. If we do not change as a human race, if we do not change as a consciousness of this planet, then whether we're self-policing, whether we're community policing, whether the internal agenda, the internal compass, and the sort of, what is the word that I'm looking for? The integrity within the people, right? If we don't have the integrity within each of us, if we don't have the spiritual consciousness, the expanded consciousness. When I talk about spiritual, I mean this idea that we understand how we're connected to everything. We understand how we're connected to each other. We understand the responsibility of integrity. We've absorbed in principles of love and kindness and respect. And the thing is that this situation is sort of calling us, and a lot of things have been calling us, but this is like, are you ready? Are we ready? Do we trust each other? Do we trust each other? Do we believe that everybody is going to have right, good, moral, integral desire to do the right thing, treat each other the right way, not pillage, not steal from each other, and by the way, I'm talking about what the world will be in the future. I'm not talking about any circumstances currently, right? Are we integrated the idea of why we don't self-harm? Are we ready for that, right? And some of you guys are saying you are. Amen. Do we believe that we are as a globe? I do not. Okay? I'm not saying we can't be. That's why I'm talking this morning. Because if we do not all start taking this so seriously that you don't think about anybody else right now, don't take this outside to your neighbor, to whatever in your mind at this moment. I'm talking to you. And that's why hopefully you are all sharing this beyond sharing this, and you are putting this in every place that you could possibly put this so that people can see this that maybe are not in our immediate community. If you have not come to reconcile within yourself how to love yourself and respect yourself, and understand that we treat our planet and each other like it's our backyard and it's our baby. If we have not done that spiritual work or that consciousness expansion work to get to that place, then it really doesn't matter what system or lack of system or law or lack of law that we pass or don't pass, because the energetic reality is that we will continue to perpetrate and permeate that energy. Okay? So it is really, for me, right? So as you hear Nicole and I say going forward, all right? And I want to also say this because I want my community and I want the world community to understand. I have been doing this type of work since I was a little girl. Our platform is dedicated to the understanding that everything we experience in our physical world is a symptomatic result of our internal reality. And if we do not understand how to access core internal realities, and we do not understand how to access core energetic realities, and we do not work within the function of universal law and principle, then the long-term sustainability of that change is not only undetermined, it's unlikely, because frequency matches frequency. So if you're like, I'm not following you, think about this. A magnet attracts the same frequency of a magnet. Let's say it's a purple magnet, and all the purple magnet can do is attract other purple magnets. Think about it like that. Whatever is happening within you, it is going to find its counterpart in the external world. And then when you put us all together, we create external reality and circumstances and things that just create that over and over again. So if we ignore the fact that this is a consciousness revolution, meaning if you change your consciousness around an issue, organically, every structure outside of you would change. And it is normal that as humans, we've been taught to focus on the external so much that we don't ask whether people have caught up. We said in our last video, we talked a little bit about history, right? We talked a little bit about how after the abolishment of slavery within the United States, laws changed. Many people did not change. We found new ways to have systemic racism that were so nuanced, and others not at all. Some blatant, and some so nuanced that they became hidden, and others were able to actually not be aware of them and of the reality of its happening. Why? It was because the thing is, the focus wasn't on the revolution of the consciousness of saying, hey, why? Where did we get this idea Let's break down these ideas and understand how they're not true at a fundamental level. Understand how they spew negativity or evil or distortion that poisons ourselves, but that comes from within us that we've then expressed outside of us. And so the change occurred in some ways, but stayed at a consciousness level, stayed at a root cause level. Let's not do that again. Let's not do that again. So although people are coming together as a tapestry right now to create change on this planet, and there is not only this change, I find it's important that we focus on this subject at the moment because I think that it is an important time. But I also will not ignore some certain other things because I think that there are many things happening on the same time. So you might see us talking about a lot of things, but what you're always going to see us talking about is because this is what we're dedicated to and this is what we know how to do. And if I don't teach about this and I do not work on this with you guys, then I am essentially ignoring what it is that I have spent my entire life to come to do with you and the calling that I've had to do with you, which is that we need to talk about where the consciousness shifts. So if you're sitting there and you think I'm not a giant integral part of this, you are. And it is time for you to no longer think that this is not your issue. And when I say this is not your issue, yes, I'm talking about racism, but I'm talking about lots of other stuff. I'm talking about it's all your issue because it's all a symptom of where we are. So when we don't care for ourselves and we shame ourselves and we judge ourselves and we're avoiding dealing with the hard things within ourselves and we internalize negativity and we believe in, abuse of each other, and when we feed those pieces, then we're saying, I recognize that that's not resolved within me. It will not be resolved in the world. It will not be resolved in the world. So I don't say with negativity that we're not there. I say with urgency that we're not there, okay? I don't sugarcoat to you this idea that we're, all ready to ascend into a new earth because we don't even know how to care yet enough about each other and about things. So what I feel that's so important right now is that we have the most radical analysis of our individual selves. And in having that radical analysis of our individual selves, we also understand that if we do not shift consciousness as a country or a global community, then the result of our changes may not match what some people desire, because what those changes will match is the energy they're created from. And I don't know the energetic intention of every person creating change right now. What I invite us to do is to get real clear what that is. What I invite us to do is to get really, really connected to the principles that we want to see expressed within something. So if we are going to break things down and create other things, let it be with an energy and a consciousness that is very different. And if we are going to pretend that structures are not run by other people, therefore we create new structures run by other people, what the common denominator is people. So if the people are not coming from love, if the people do not understand how to stop fighting, if the people do not start claiming their individual sovereignty, their power, and their desire to stop hurting other people, we can have some difficulty. So I do promise that I'm going to do my research more fully on some of the proposals that are being placed right now around this issue, and that I'll continue to look at this more deeply. But what feels so important for me is that you guys do not ignore what I'm saying. I'm not saying, it's unfortunate because there is a lot of negative agenda abuse to this kind of conversation, right? So it's like, oh, you're not, it's new age. By the way, everything Nicole and I teach is the most ancient principles that exists before organized religion was formed, before the fundamental basis for what most of the texts that you guys connect to, right? So if you connect to a spiritual faith and there's a text in that faith, there are principles that came even before the text of that faith could be created, right? So there may be things that have been created in new time, but what I'm talking about are fundamental realities, principles, energetic rules, principles of universal reality that we are bound by, as well as the reality of cause and effect, manifestation, polarity, creation, energetic intention. And those things have become more powerful now than they've ever been before. And we do it. Every one of you is manifesting, creating, existing within these laws. But there is such a large portion of the world that's decided, I don't want to be aware that I'm doing that. I don't want to be aware that I'm doing that. And where we have prioritized has become distorted. Think about it this way. If you were hemorrhaging and I took out a Band-Aid and I put the Band-Aid on your hemorrhage, what would you look at me like? We are taught in the Western world, from medicine to theory to politics to behavior, to continuously attempt to band-aid the hemorrhages of symptoms, as opposed to ask why the symptom is even there. If you go to a doctor in the United States, most doctors, and you say, or historically, and you say, I have headaches, the first response is most likely going to be, here is a prescription. The first response should be, are you drinking water? Are you stressed? Are you eating in proper increments? Are you eating things that are poisonous for your body? We don't inquire. So just as your headache is a symptom, all the things we're looking at in the world right now are symptoms. So inquire. Why is it happening? What are we doing inside? Not just what can we do to band-aid the problem. And of course, three-dimensional changes are going to need to happen. But we absolutely cannot create them while creating long-term change if we do not have the opportunity, we do not take the advantage to not only be responsible in an integral way, but understand how each of you is creating the world around you. And that if we are not desiring to stop treating symptoms, but wanting to create long-term change by understanding why those symptoms occurred, there is so much power in the ability to understand why things are occurring. And it might not be comfortable. And you might have to abandon things that you believed. And I invite all of you to do that right now. I think that we are all growing together. It is a consciousness revolution. That means that you should get triggered. That means that things should drop away. That means things that you attach to for comfort might need to shift, and that things that you might have thought weren't happening are happening. And it might be that you are having a breakdown watching this video, fully irritated, because you want to hold on to, no, Dov, this is how we need to do it. So if you're in that position, I invite you more than anybody watching this to go, what if that's not true? What if the ideas and the programs within me are breaking down out of frustration from understanding that if we do not change on a conscious basis, if we do not fundamentally change on a conscious basis, on an energetic basis, an awareness basis, on a spiritual basis, then we will continue to recreate what is within us, so that within us is time to change. This is why we talk about grief work, is why we talk about core, assessment of what's happening with each individual, is why we do everything the way that we've been doing it. So I wanted to talk about that with you guys this morning. I hope that this allows for a really, really deep reminder of, first of all, your need to turn the mirror to yourself and just say, what have I been contributing then in the vein of energy that I don't want to contribute? Where can I do the work within myself? Where are we spiritually bypassing or personally evading or, not wanting to look at the necessity of responsibility around having a spiritual consciousness. How can I share this message, right? So you can literally share this video if it resonates for you, please do. And allowing us to, you know, and this is where we're going to be dedicated to working with you guys, is where we're going to keep talking about, right? Where is the consciousness? Where is our national and global consciousness around the choices that we're making? And that is really, really vital. It is a non-negotiable factor of the success or breakdown of our choices for three-dimensional change. I love all of you guys so very much. Yeah, and it's confusing in certain ways, and in other ways, it's really simple, and it requires us to start stretching. You know, it's confusing in the sense that we have been taught, and you have been taught, that you're not responsible for life. Right? You have been taught that things happen to you. You have been taught that, you know, the world around you is the way it is, not necessarily as a result of you as a participant. And I love that Spirit had me see that one comment, right? That is why this is confusing. Because you have been taught that you are not a creator, that you are not responsible, and that you are not powerful enough, and that whatever is going on in your head and your energy, it doesn't affect the world. Guess what? It's a macro image of our internal state. That's it. You are, think about yourself like a projector. You go to the movie theater, there's a projector, then there's a screen, and we watch the screen. You're the projector. The screen is the world around you. It's that simple. But it's complicated in the sense that this requires you to deprogram the idea that you're not powerful. It requires you to deprogram the idea that you're not responsible. It requires you to have so much individual integrity that we don't get to just hate people or attack people or be desiring to hurt people or steal from people or whatever happens with, and again, I'm not actually talking about it in context of what we're going through right now. I'm talking about historically. It actually matters that we love ourselves enough or have enough tools to understand how to get through life. Not easy stuff. Not easy stuff. That's why we've been dedicated to talking about root causes of addiction, root causes of trauma, root causes of self-love issues, root causes, because that all matters. All of those root causes in each and every one of us is the result of the systems that we experience in the world around us. And we do not have the luxury, in my opinion, we do not have the luxury to continue to avoid that. As we are having a renaissance of sorts in our world, in order to stop creating the same repetitious patterns, I've been seeing some posts that I can't totally back. And a lot of them are like, you know, we've got to do what we've done in history. We've got to basically war. We've got to burn, hurt people. We've got to, come at each other. That's the only way because that's what worked, right? We had wars in the past. We had, that's what we have to recreate. It's like, well, when we say we have to recreate that, we're saying that we didn't grow, okay? Because we can choose to recreate that. That's a statement I can take. We have to recreate that is not a statement I can take because you don't have to recreate anything. You have so much more power and ability than you have been led to believe. And there are millions of ways that we can change right now. But what really needs to be the I am wanting to have this aha moment is we're going to change at a conscious level. We're going to change at a conscious level because when we change at a conscious level, again, everything in our three-dimensional world around us is going to change. So I love you guys very much. I hope that this struck some chords of perspective and being able to look at it in a framework, in an organized framework within yourself, and being able to just even sit with the idea today, I might be more powerful and responsible than I think. And not like, oh my gosh, I'm responsible. Like, wow, I am a contributor to the reality. And I can shift in my consciousness, and that shift in my consciousness is something that is, accumulative, and that is something that is inheritable, and that is something that I can spread, and that is something that will shift your family, and that is something that will shift your friends, and that is something that is necessary for sustaining a healthy relationship. It is necessary for changing the globe, right? This is micro, macro, absolute, non-negotiable reality. So if you guys you're seeing this for the first time, I just invite you to follow us, and you can follow us on any of our social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. We do different things on different places. It is not that I'm trying to ignore particular platforms. I do tend to pop on here live a little bit more. And I just really ask you to share this message and to allow it to sink in, and to allow ourselves to really have this very important and continuous question with ourselves of like, where is our integrity consciously? Where are we? And maybe you look inside and go, I'm angry. Okay. And maybe you look inside and go, I'm hateful. And maybe you look inside and go, I hate myself. Maybe you look inside and say, I want to hurt other people. And maybe that honesty is your starting point, right? Because it is not going to create the change for us to look inside and just go like, I don't see anything. Like, get inside. Like, look at the dirt and say, if it's in there for me, it's in there for somebody else. And if we don't have individual energetic integrity and accountability, any system we put in place is going to be a reflection of that. So if systems are changing right now, we better change as a consciousness radically quickly. Otherwise, we will get some of the same repetitious structural difficulties that we've had. And I am honoring and grateful for all of those that are focused on the three-dimensional changes and have the ability. And what I ask for, is for us to start to realize that we can't look at anything in exclusion of the other. Right? And so if we have a goal, if I had a goal of change, my goal of change would be for all of us to understand that even if those of us are engineers to the three-dimensional reality, we can't look at anything in exclusion anymore, right? The three-dimensional changes don't occur without fourth-dimensional consciousness or belief system changes. And those things really stem from where our fifth-dimensional soul-level connection and spiritual health really is rooted. So I love all of you guys very much. I hope that you have a blessed day. And I hope that if this has triggered any part or sparked any part for you, that the shift in the consciousness, even if it's ever so slight, is going to start to create a movement. Nicole and I are dedicated to a revolution of consciousness. It is actually why the name of our business is Twin Flame Revolution. Nicole and I are energetic twin matches to each other, and we together bring our energy to create a revolution in consciousness. So that is something that has always been part of my core desire to be here on this planet. And I think many of you guys are also designed for that. So I want you to think about, spread the message, consider, and also remember, I'm going to say one more time, not enter a state of fear for yourselves. Constantly be doing what you need to do to stay connected and feeding your own individual well-being and health. I will see you guys very soon. I wish you a blessed day, and I hope that you can take a deep breath as you do this little bit of integration. All of you have already shifted much in this little period of time that we've had together. Bye, guys.